Republican candidate in New Hampshire, Lily Tang Williams, skewered her Democratic opponent, Maggie Goodlander, last Thursday in a debate between the two. Goodlander is married to National Security Adviser Jake Sullivan. She accused Tang Williams of favoring the rich. Williams fired back. Here's that exchange. It was glorious. Let's watch.
This is a worldview that my opponent has embraced. She believes that we should give a break to the wealthiest and the biggest corporations and hope for the best, hope that the results will trickle down to hardworking people. I take a very different approach. I believe that the middle class deserves a tax cut, and I believe that we will do a lot for this country by ensuring that we don't continue this disastrous tax policy.
Ms. Tang Williams.
You are wealthy. You are worth $20 million to $30 million. How do you know about regular people suffering? Do you go shopping, go to Walmart, buy food? I talk to those people. And you pretend to be renter in Nashua a few months ago, moved back to run for this open seat with millions of dollars from Washington, D.C. insiders. And the millions of dollars, I don't have money to run a TV ad. And you pretend you are poor, complain rent is so high. You couldn't save that apartment for other people to rent in Nashua. Just go back to your $2 million home in Portsmouth. Please don't say that, because you do not understand regular people's concern.
According to fresh polling, Democrats are leading in the congressional race in the Granite State. Per local news WMUR, Goodlander is topping Tang 51 to 43%. This
video went very viral on
did.
social media. A lot of commentary from my side of the aisle. Lily Tang Williams, formerly was part of the Libertarian Party, ran as a Libertarian candidate, still identifies, I think, as a very Libertarian-inclined Republican, moved to New Hampshire. There was an effort by many Libertarians to move to New Hampshire, the Free State Project. It's one of the more Libertarian-leaning ideologically states in the nation. She's someone who fled communist Chinese oppression as a Chinese immigrant, and is running, she says, to stop us from going down that path of dreaded top-down authoritarian economic control.
I mean, it's interesting for sure. She's also wealthy too, so the fact that she says she can't afford to buy an ad is different than I cannot personally afford to, because she is personally wealthy. Both of them are wealthy.
Well, she's wealthy. She worked her way to the top. She came here with, she said, with nothing, and started a business, and is a terrific. This is why I don't think the GOP should demonize immigrants. Look, this is an immigrant who came here with nothing, built successful companies, and is now running to stop socialism from taking over. This is what we could have.
Except she wants to put tariffs on China, which of course is going to rise.
Well, everybody wants to put tariffs on China.
Well, it's going to increase the cost of living for people.
Joe Biden
in
has
Nashua.
put tariffs on China.
He has. We've talked about that, but Donald Trump's only answer to everything right now is tariffs on China, which of course pretty much every.
Joe Biden agrees with him on that.
Not increased, but anyways, I think that the bigger conversation here is, can a wealthy person be patriotic? I mean, the Kennedys famously.
Well, of course they can.
Yeah, and so I think this doesn't necessarily work with folks, because the policies of Goodlander are the ones that are alleviating the stress for the middle class. I mean, the policies that Lily Tang Williams is pushing are isolationist. She wants, some of the gun issues obviously is going to play well in New Hampshire, but she is not pushing for solving the housing crisis by building more housing.
I think she is. I don't know what her, as a libertarian,
control.
Her view is we want to get rid of obstructions to building more housing. The number one reason we can't build housing in this country is restrictions on where and when you can build, restrictions imposed by NIMBY type liberal people and people of all ideologies to thwart new development. We want to get rid of all of that. I would not say that Jake Sullivan's wife's policies are the policies that are going to enrich the middle class. I don't know exactly what her policies are, but the policies of the Democratic administration that her husband is a part of has been to raise, to worsen at every turn inflation by having massive government spending.
Down. It's been down. It's gone down drastically in the last. It's almost normalized at this point. Problem is that we can't turn back those numbers. And those numbers, the inflation did start under Trump, and of course it was a result of COVID, so we can't forget that. And the economy was not doing great under COVID and prior to COVID with Trump. So we are at a more stable place. It doesn't mean that people are feeling the pain still. I mean, I feel the pain when I went to order a glass of wine at a restaurant last night in Washington, D.C., and it was $20, and it was not like a bougie place. I'm like, what is this? And don't we have happy hours anymore? That's a whole other conversation. But this is like.
This is why I drink so heavily alone at home. It's cheaper.
It's your conference and your Florida vacation. I'm sure Miami was not cheap at all.
Although it's not more expensive than here. DC
Right.
is worse by far.
And New York is. I mean, I live in
we're-
Queens, and
yeah,
when I go
it's
into
worse.
Manhattan, I'm like, it's like entering a new country.
Yeah.
Queens is not cheap either.
Yeah.
But it is.
But people are feeling this all around the country, and that, as I think we mentioned this in A Block, Nate Silver did some analysis of areas in the country where inflation has remained high, because it's vast place, there's differences everywhere. Areas of the country where inflation has remained high have been problem spots for Harris, and that goes to people calling this the second COVID election, because a lot of the money spent during COVID has had, economists will say, an inflationary effect that lingers in some parts of the country, and Americans are not happy about it.
And also wages. So inflation is still high in big cities, but the wages are higher. And so if you're not having that wage increase in conjunction with the inflation being still high, or the rates still being feeling higher, I should say, it's not solving the problem. And in places like New Hampshire, just to bring it back to this congressional race, people are feeling it in a more intense way. There's a lot of rural, I'm sure you've been in New Hampshire before, there's a lot of rural communities in New Hampshire, and independent thinking
I
folks.
went to New Hampshire to attend, to speak at Pork Fest, a gathering of libertarians.
Different type of pork,
wonderful.
not like government pork, not.
No, because it's porcupine is the symbol, is, don't tread on, don't step on me,
Yeah.
I'll poke you with my sharp porcupine needles.
I
if you
thought it
don't
was like
exercise my rights.
Government pork.
No, they are against that as
Yeah,
well.
they are. That's what I figured.
It was
Not
a
like
fun time.
actual pork. One time, my friend was turning 30 and we were in Chicago, and we went to this piano bar, and it was the International Pork Conference, pork conference, and there were all these pork lobbyists there. And I learned way too much about pork lobbying, so.
I've got a weirder one than that. I was in Toronto speaking at and doing a debate on social media regulation. I was in a hotel, and it's not in Toronto itself. Toronto's just the closest city I was to. I don't know where anything is in Canada, but the alarm went off in the hotel, like the fire alarm. So we had to all leave the hotel, and there were all these ladies in provocatively dressed fishnet stockings and green paint. And finally, I asked, "What's the deal?" They said they were there for ShrekCon. Did you know there's such a thing?
Now I
ShrekCon?
do.
I think it's kind of a sexual thing.
How did I not know about this my whole entire life? You know where I'll be.
Anyway, some other thing I wanted to get to today, and this is just not ShrekCon, but the congressional race is the most closely related thing. We talked already today about the SNL appearance by Kamala Harris and the debate over whether that's a campaign finance violation or FCC violation. Kamala Harris was not the only one to appear SNL. There was also Tim Kaine, who, in case you have never heard that name before, he actually was the vice presidential nominee for Hillary Clinton. The joke was about how no one knows or remembers who he is, which is a joke I've made many times, and I actually do think is funny. But he is being challenged right now. He's a candidate. He has a Republican opponent, Hung Kao, who is within striking distance, although it's going to be a difficult race, surely. And so I think there's an argument that was an even more sort of thumb on the scale.
But it was like
appalling.
talking about him versus, I mean,
the whole thing was about remember my name. This is what my name is. When you go into the ballot box, Tim Kaine.
There's another one like this, though, where
it's funny, but it was like, okay, that's exactly the kind of thing I think the FCC regulation was designed to prevent.
Maybe, but I mean, there's a lot of comedy that you could go over the years and see. I'm not a witch. Those. I mean, basically everything SNL does in the lead up to an election is talk about and make light of different types of things that are happening on the campaign trail. My favorite one, and this is very insider New York, I'm surprised they did it, was Assemblymember Harvey Epstein, who I know, and he's a great guy. He's running for city council in New York, and the whole ad was about how Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein, I am not related to either one of them. Stop getting confused. I am a good guy. And they're interviewing people, and they're like, everyone deserves a second chance. And he's like, I'm on my first chance, guys.
That is funny. All right, we've got more to talk about today, including, finally, Peanuts, the squirrel, victim of government oppression and murder. Stay tuned, more Rising right after this.